Hi there baby cakes. I'm really sorry I didn't get to my Vlogmas videos over the weekend. It was so packed with professional obligations, social engagements. It was just too much. I just couldn't fit in the videos and the editing, so I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to get back into the flow from today and keep going, and then hopefully I'll be able to record stuff in advance so that next weekend when I'm out celebrating my birthday with friends I will be able to have videos scheduled to go up, because I really want to commit to doing Vlogmas on the daily, and I was pretty disappointed that I didn't get everything done Vlogmas wise for last weekend, but these things fucking happen, you know what I mean? Hopefully you guys are okay with it, no one died, and I'm hoping that the topic that I'm going to tackle in today's Vlogmas video is going to more than make up for my absence over the weekend, because it's something that I've been meaning to talk about for the longest time on my channel. It's something that I have been through and had some really difficult experiences with over the past year particularly. It's something that I get asked about, it's something that people do ask me to tackle, and it's something that I've helped clients through, so I feel like I can bring some helpful advice to the table. Again, as with all the Vlogmas videos, I'm not going to be ticking off every single point. It's not going to be, you know, the definitive video about the subject, but I do really want to get some thoughts down in a video regarding the topic of the ending of friendship. There are so many different reasons why a friendship ends. A friendship can end because of a betrayal, because of a really extreme action that changes the fundamentals of the friendship itself, where one person feels like they can no longer trust the other person, or they don't really understand what the other person's intentions are. Friendships can end because people have different priorities as they move through different evolutions, different stages in their lives. People reassess their priorities and recognise that they have more in common with people whose priorities mesh with their own. Moving location can definitely kind of simmer a friendship down a little bit. It can cause people to spend more time with those that they are closer with in proximity, and that means that there's less communication between friends even when the friendship is really old. Friends can just slowly grow apart. There can be miscommunications, misunderstandings, just an inability to communicate what we really wanted to say or what we really meant, and that can definitely end to a breakdown in a friendship. Sometimes a friendship ends because there's an ongoing harmful behaviour on one or both sides and somebody decides to make a break for it. For example, if a friend has a really long-standing substance abuse problem or an addiction of some kind, and the other friend in the connection is trying to help and trying to be there and trying to help them break the cycle, but then after a certain amount of time it appears that the cycle is just ongoing. Sometimes one friend will choose to break away for their own good, you know. They will feel that there is nothing else that they can possibly do, and they will feel that it's time to step out of the friend's life until the abuse problem is sorted out. Sometimes a friendship just takes a great deal of a person's energy, and if they have less energy to dedicate to things like friendships and social engagements, and they begin to realise that they're feeling very energetically depleted, that might be a time in which they feel it's appropriate to reduce or eliminate the extent of the friendship. Of course, the ideal way for a friendship to end is via an open, mature dialogue with both people involved. So the person who wants to end the friendship effectively, the person who wants to terminate the connection or walk away, would ideally be able to open up to the other person, state their reasons, be honest, give that other person a chance to learn from the situation, or at least clarify what is going on and why. And that's the way, ordinarily, I'm sure a lot of us would like it to be done, but it's often not done that way. Often a friend walks out of your life without saying a fucking thing to you. They just literally give you the silent treatment. They don't answer your calls, they don't answer your text messages, they don't want anything more to do with you. And they literally will just freeze you out, they will just dark you out as though you are dead to them. And this is an incredibly painful experience. I've been through it, I know a lot of people have been through it. And it's exasperating as well, because I think a lot of the time, when you have a certain degree of emotional intelligence and when you recognise that relationships do end and friendships do break down and sometimes people are not suited to each other anymore, then you also tend to be the kind of person that understands that, you know, there are lessons to be learned. There are things that could be understood that could stop you from making the same mistakes again. There are probably things that you need to apologise for, and probably things the other person needs to apologise for. There is a certain amount of closure that can be received via honest, open communication. It's really exasperating, very frustrating, very saddening when you can't get that dialogue from the other person, when you are willing to hear what it is that you may have done to the other person, how it is that the other person feels, why they want to walk away, but they will not give you that dialogue. And 9 times out of 10, they won't give you that dialogue out of fear. it's just out of fear, sometimes it's out of shame, sometimes it's out of an inability for them to express how they actually feel. They're not sure why they're walking away, so they really have nothing to tell you. They really have no kind of certainty about their own agenda. There are all kinds of different reasons. Some people really fear conflict and they want to avoid conflict. Some people really fear getting into an open dialogue about why they want to end a friendship because they fear that you might have something to say to them about their behaviour in the friendship. Either they know that they did wrong and they don't want you to highlight it, they don't want you to bring it up, or they don't want to feel judged. So they want to have a judgment of you, or at least have a judgment about the calibre of the friendship they had with you, but they don't want you to have a chance to state your case and talk about your feelings about them and what they may have done. So sometimes it's really a defence mechanism. Giving somebody the silent treatment and walking away without picking up the phone, without saying anything, without ending the friendship officially, is a way for somebody to keep themselves safe from anything that you might have to say to them about their own less than perfect behaviour. So there are many different reasons why a lot of friendships don't end with this mature, open dialogue, this closure, if you like. And I think it would be so great if friendships did end that way, but a lot of the time they don't. A lot of the time they end with a massive row, or they end with dead silence. They end in a very fractious way, in a very fragmented way, in an ugly way a lot of the time. A lot of the time when a friendship that meant a lot to us ends, it's sad that the ending itself doesn't really do a great deal of justice to exactly how powerful and how potent and important the friendship itself was to us. If you have found that a friend of yours has walked out of your life without giving you an explanation, or is kind of dancing around the reasons why they don't want to be your friend anymore, and you want to have this open, honest, mature discussion with them about what has gone down, and you want to understand what you can learn from their own perspective on things, then by all means request that open discussion. You know, send them an email, send them a text message, call them, send them a letter, and say that you want to have a discussion about why it is that they want to end the friendship. You can even say to them that you're not really interested in trying to talk them around. If they don't want to be around you anymore, that's fine, but you would like to honour the friendship that existed between you by sitting down and talking about why it needs to end. I think that's something that we're justified in doing. I think if we know that we can handle whatever might come forward from this person who is our friend, then we're absolutely within our rights to ask for that discussion. I would say at the same time, however, that I think it's really important that we don't put ourselves in a position of losing self-respect. If you find that you are begging this person for a consultation with them, if you are begging for them to meet up with you, or begging for them to give you an answer as to why they don't want to be in your life anymore, then stop for a moment and ask yourself if you're actually respecting yourself and if you're keeping your own dignity. You shouldn't have to beg for anybody's time. You shouldn't have to beg for anybody else's courtesy. And if they are just giving you the silent treatment and you keep requesting and requesting over and over again in desperation almost that they contact you, then think about how you're making yourself feel. Consider where you're putting your vibration and where you're putting your agency when you're doing that, and make sure that you're not surrendering your agency to somebody who doesn't deserve it, and to somebody who may indeed actually be enjoying the fact that you are so desperate to receive something that they are withholding from you. One thing I really want to say that I think is so important to communicate to you in this video is that getting over a friendship, getting over a significant friendship in your life that's come to an end is no different to getting over a romantic connection that's come to an end. Don't let anybody tell you any different. I really would recommend not seeking advice or support or guidance from anybody who tries to downplay your feelings about the end of an important friendship. It is a grieving process. It does take time. It can be very shocking. You may need to cry. You may need to talk about it several times to get to the bottom of how you really feel about it and get to a point where you can feel, stable about it. And it's important that you seek advice and support from those who don't seek to downplay those feelings. Anyone in your life who is very, very quick to push you to get over the ending of a significant friendship, anyone who rolls their eyes at you, anyone who says to you, well, it's not as if it was a romantic connection, those people are not going to be helpful for you. Those people are not trying to understand how incredibly significant friendship can be, what an incredibly potent part it plays in somebody's life, and how shocking and disheartening it can be when a friendship comes to an end abruptly and without explanation. So I definitely recommend, if you want to seek advice and support, or if you want to converse with somebody about it, choose somebody who's not going to downplay your feelings about the ending of the friendship. Choose someone who's going to understand exactly how important it was to you and how shocked and saddened you are that it's come to an end. Don't downplay your own feelings, you know, don't tell yourself that you're just being silly and you should just get over it. It's going to take a while. It is a grieving process. It is something that you need to go through. In many, many cases, a friend who's walked out of your life and doesn't want to know you anymore has some mutual friends in common with you. And that means that there is a decision-making process to be gone through. You need to consider whether or not it's healthy, whether or not it's practical, whether or not it's beneficial to keep mutual friends in your life, friends that you share in common with this friend that you no longer speak to. Now, every situation is different. There is no way I can give any kind of general guidance on this. Every situation is so nuanced and it belongs to itself, really. You know, there are no two situations that are exactly alike. Sometimes we find that mutual friends can remain in our lives and remain in the other person's lives, and all the friendships can thrive. But sometimes there are complications. For example, you might be very tempted to involve one of your mutual friends in this. You might be tempted to probe them for information, for example. You might be tempted to triangulate with them. And by that I mean you might be tempted to give them messages to give to this ex-friend of yours. You might be tempted to manipulate the situation with the mutual friend in order to trigger your ex-friend to do something or say something. It's important that you are conscious of your own desire to try to get any mutual friends involved in anything. It's important to keep mutual friends as far away from the situation as you possibly can. In my personal experience and with what I've seen working with clients, with what I've seen in my social life, etc., somebody who is a mutual friend of both you and the person you've fallen out with very, very rarely wants to be involved in that. They want to be left out of it. It's very complicated for them, it's sticky, they end up feeling like they're stuck in the middle, they don't know what to say, and it's like they're walking on eggshells. So if you have any respect for that person who is mutual friends with this person you're not friends with anymore, then it's best for you to be conscious of any desire that you have to involve them and really talk yourself down from that place of wanting to involve them. If you feel that you can't have any friends in common with this friend who's walked out of your life, then it's important to say so honestly. It's important to state your case. It's important that you do what's best for you and you set boundaries where necessary. Sometimes, particularly if an ex-friend has betrayed you and that is the reason for the breakdown of the friendship, it is nigh on impossible to keep mutual friends with that person. Like I said, every single situation is so different. You have to come to a conclusion that works for you. You have to come to a conclusion that feels right for you. You've really, really got to listen to your heart. You've got to make sure you're not doing anything that's compromising your sense of self-respect. You've got to make sure you're not doing anything that sacrifices your responsibility to love yourself. When a significant friend walks out of your life and that friend was somebody that you spent a lot of time talking to or a lot of time hanging around with, there is often a big feeling of space, you know, empty space that friend has left. And one of the most important things I can recommend is that you fill that space with good, positive, high vibe things. Do things that are good for you. Do things that are nurturing and nourishing for you. Choose to fill the space with things that are incredibly positive. Choose to fill the space with things that you've been putting off doing for yourself for a really long time and now can actually get into and enjoy. Make sure that you are using that time and that space that you've got free to be your own best friend for a little while. You know, be good to you, be an ally to yourself, learn more about who you are, think about what you want to do with your life, set some plans, set some goals and actually start to work towards them. Use that time to reconnect with yourself, to make sure that you're doing right by yourself and hang out with yourself, enjoy your own company, have a good time with you and get back to a sense of who you are as your own friend. Don't try to rush the process of grieving a friendship. Don't try to skip to the end of it. Remember that the pain and the sadness does come in waves. Sometimes after a while you won't think about it for a couple of weeks and you'll start to feel as though things are getting better and it's not affecting you as much, and then you'll be triggered by something will come out of nowhere, like a song that both of you really liked, or their birthday is coming up, something like that. You might see something on social media that involves them and a mutual friend that you have with them, something of that nature. I would definitely recommend that to the extent that you can, it's important to protect yourself. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're going after them on social media, looking at what they're doing, asking questions about them to mutual friends, trying to get a sense of who they're hanging out with or what their life is like now. Don't do things that you know are actually hurting you. Don't do things that are actually slowing down your grieving process. But at the same time, I would recommend that you don't try and skip to the end of your grieving process. Recognise that sometimes the pain does come in waves. You will be triggered. You will experience memories. From time to time, you will just get really sad and down about why it is that they left your life or thinking about why the friendship had to end. and you'll get frustrated, but you've got to ride those waves each time, you know. It's important to respect the grieving process where the end of a friendship is concerned, just as you would with the end of a romantic connection. You may actually be able to recognise different parts of the grieving process as you're going through them, and if you can, then I would definitely recommend that you actually mark each stage of the grieving process that you go through by doing some journaling, doing a reading for yourself, or doing some kind of ritual to mark the evolution of the grieving process as you go along. I know that for me, I definitely noted when my pain began to fade. I noted when I began to feel less angry. I noted when I began to be able to centre myself in feelings of forgiveness and love. And I noted when I began to feel more able to be blessed, to feel blessed by the time that I'd spent with those friends, and rather than be really angry about the way that it ended and the way that I was treated, instead to feel that I was glad for the lessons that I learned, and I was glad for the good times that I had, and I was able to actually kind of put it to bed, if you like. And I did go to one of my favourite tarot readers for a reading, and that really helped. I was feeling very angry, very embittered, very frustrated and very confused, and going for that reading really helped me, and it kind of forged me through some of my grieving process. So I would recommend doing things that can actually aid you in your process of grief and understanding, rather than trying to push through and act like you're fine and act as though you're done when you're really not done, you know? And if you recognise that different stages are actually occurring and you're going through them, mark them, as I said, mark them with journaling, mark them with ritual, talk about them with a friend or counsellor. Recognise that the grieving process is occurring and that you're learning different things and you're going to different stages as you go along. And that can be very rejuvenating. There can be something really regenerating energetically about recognising that you are going along the road of healing and you're hitting different junctures as you go, and there's stuff to be learned from that process. The truth is that if a friend of yours had actually been kind of secretly or unconsciously wanting to walk away from the friendship for a while, then it's best off that they do so. You only want relationships in your life that are thriving. You only want relationships in your life that are genuine. You don't want to maintain your grasp on a friendship where one person is fundamentally unhappy with it for one reason or another, or one person doesn't want to give the amount of energy and commitment to it that you do. Sometimes, even though it hurts, and even though it's shocking, and even though we thought it would never happen, when a friendship ends, it is actually absolutely the right thing for us. Because if they had any doubt in their mind that the friendship was actually right for them, and if they had any doubt in their mind that it was of benefit to them, then it's always best for us that they walk away. We don't want to continue to maintain friendships and allow them to linger if there is something rotting underneath the surface that we never really knew of, you know? Because eventually, if we keep those kinds of friendships in our lives that aren't built on a foundation of trust and mutual benefit, something is going to blow up in our faces. So if you are experiencing the loss of a friendship right now and you are feeling angry or confused, just remember that if something was rotten at the core, then you are best off away from that friendship. And eventually, when you get to the end of your healing process, when you've grieved it all out and you've experienced that sorrow, you'll be able to look back, extract the lessons, leave the useless baggage behind, and recognise that you are worthy of thriving connections that mean something to both of you and that are beneficial to both of you. And you will realise that sometimes a friendship ends because that wasn't what was going on with the energy of that friendship, and maybe we didn't realise it at the time, but 9 times out of 10 we do come to realise that in the end. We come to realise that it wasn't the calibre or the nature of friendship that we really wanted to invite into our lives, and it was for the best that it came to a conclusion. You know, I think sometimes with some of the friendships that have ended in my life and some of the people that have walked away, I've actually looked in hindsight at the friendship itself, at the construction of the friendship and what was involved in it and what I was giving and what they were giving. And actually, after a certain amount of time and distance and hindsight, I've been able to look at that friendship and think, if that had lingered much longer, it would have been a lot fucking worse for me, you know? I have thought about the fact that I was inputting much more than I was getting back. I was giving much more than I was receiving. I was being more honest than the other person was, or I was just more committed than the other person was. I have thought about potentially the fact that I thought the friendship was bigger than it was, or I thought I was entitled to expect more from that person than I was. You know, all kinds of different things come up that while I was in the depths of the friendship, I couldn't have seen. But in hindsight, as I've looked back, as I've gotten to the end of my grieving process, I've thought to myself, I'm glad that ended. It could have been emotionally risky for me if it hadn't have ended. It would have been worse for me had it have ended further down the line. So I'm actually glad that it ended when it did. Even if the ending involved a lot of rejection or cruelty or mean words, 9 times out of 10, I do look back and think, that was a lucky escape, and I'm glad things ended when they did. One thing that has made it easier and easier for me as I've gotten older when it comes to the death of friendship and the ending of connections that are important to me is knowing that I am my own friend, that I love myself, that I trust myself, I'm there for myself, and I enjoy my own company. This has made it much easier for me to bring my self-respect into the friendships that I have in my life, and to make absolutely sure that I don't conduct any friendships in a way that allows me to abandon my self-respect. I really hope these thoughts and this advice has been useful to those of you out there who need it right now. If you have any personal stories that you would like to share, or any advice that you would like to give about coping with the painful endings of friendships and connections that are important to you in life, please leave it below so we can all read through and just get as much nourishment and as much nutrition as we can from this discussion. I know it's a really tough subject. I know a lot of people out there have been through something similar, and if you're going through something like that right now, then all I can say is all power, all love, all courage and all strength to you. And don't forget that you are, and you always will be, your best friend. You have that option. You can be that to yourself, and it will help you to get through so much, and it will help you to thrive through so much. Okay, much love. Blessed be, guys.